I stood there in that pack meeting hall, surrounded by hundreds of wolves who were staring at me with everything from pity to disgust to shock, and I couldn't move. My legs had turned to stone. My lungs had forgotten how to draw breath. My heart, oh goddess, my heart, it was shattering into a million pieces, and I could feel every single fracture. The pain was physical, you understand? It wasn't just emotional heartbreak. The mate bond, when it's rejected, it tears at you from the inside out. It's like your soul is being flayed alive, stripped of everything that made it whole. And he just stood there on that raised platform, looking down at me like I was beneath him, like I was unworthy of him. This man who I'd dreamed about for years before I even met him. This alpha king who I'd heard stories about since I was a pup. His strength, his wisdom, his unwavering dedication to the pack. He was supposed to be perfect. He was supposed to be mine. And when I finally came of age and felt that first spark of recognition, that electric pull toward him at the annual pack gathering, I thought my life was complete. I thought I'd found my purpose, my place in this world. What a fool I was. What a naive, stupid, blind fool. He had reasons, of course. He always had reasons. Duty, he said. Responsibility. The pack needed him to make alliances through a political mating, not bind himself to some nobody omega from a minor pack family. The pack needed strength, power, connections, things that I apparently couldn't provide. Because what was I? Just Selene. Just a girl who worked in the pack's healing center, who spent her days tending to wounded warriors and sick pups, who thought that maybe, just maybe, love and destiny meant something in this world. But I was wrong. So devastatingly wrong. You know what kills me? What really, truly destroys me every time I think about it? It's that for one moment, one brief, shining, perfect moment, I saw something different in his eyes. When the mate bond first snapped into place between us, when our eyes met across that crowded gathering hall, and the world fell away until there was nothing but him and me and this overwhelming sense of rightness, of coming home, of finding the missing piece of my soul. In that moment, I saw it. I saw the recognition in his eyes. I saw the hunger. I saw the way his wolf rose to the surface, demanding to claim me, to mark me, to make me his in every way that mattered. But then it was gone, shuttered, locked away behind walls of ice and stone that I could never hope to breach. And when he called that emergency pack meeting 3 days later, I actually thought, Goddess help me, I actually believed that he was going to announce our mating. I dressed in my best clothes. I braided flowers into my hair the way the old traditions demanded. I stood before the pack with hope singing in my veins, with joy bubbling up inside me like champagne, ready to accept my place at his side as Luna Queen. Instead, he destroyed me. The pain of the rejection hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, my hand clutching at my chest where it felt like something vital had been torn away. The mate bond, that golden thread that had connected us for those few precious days, snapped with a violence that left me gasping. And still, I couldn't look away from him. Still, my treacherous heart wanted to believe this was some kind of mistake, some terrible misunderstanding that he would correct any second now. But he didn't. He just stood there, his jaw set in that stubborn line I would come to know so well, his eyes fixed on some point above my head like he couldn't even bear to look at me directly. And the pack. Oh goddess, the pack. The whispers started immediately. The judgment. The speculation about what I had done wrong, what flaw he had seen in me, what weakness made me unworthy of being their Luna Queen. Some of them pitied me. I could see it in their eyes, that soft, sympathetic look that made me want to scream. Others looked relieved, like they dodged a bullet by not having me as their Luna. And a few, a precious few, looked angry on my behalf. But what did it matter? What did any of it matter when the one person whose opinion should have mattered most had just declared to the entire world that I wasn't good enough? I wanted to rage at him. I wanted to scream and cry and demand to know why. Why, when the moon goddess herself had chosen us for each other, would he throw that away? Why, when I could feel in my very bones that we were meant to be together, would he reject something so rare and precious and irreplaceable? But I couldn't. My voice had abandoned me. My strength had left me. All I could do was stand there and bleed emotionally while he methodically destroyed everything I thought I knew about love and fate and destiny. And you want to know the cruelest part? Even as he was rejecting me, even as he was severing that sacred bond between us, I could feel his wolf howling in protest. I could sense, through the rapidly fraying connection, the war raging inside him. His wolf wanted me. His wolf was fighting him, clawing at his control, desperate to complete the bond instead of destroying it. But Cale Thorne, the mighty Alpha King, was stronger than his wolf. He forced his beast into submission and finished what he'd started. I reject this bond, he continued, his voice carrying through the silent hall. For the good of the pack. For the strength of our people. For the future we must build. For the good of the pack. That phrase would haunt me for months to come. Because apparently I wasn't good for the pack. I wasn't strong enough, important enough, powerful enough. I was just Selene, and that would never be enough for a man like him. The formal rejection was complete, but he wasn't done. No, he had to twist the knife just a little deeper. I will be announcing my betrothal to Lyanna Blackwood of the Northern Pack within the month, he declared. A union that will strengthen our alliance and bring prosperity to both our peoples. Lyanna Blackwood. Of course. The daughter of the Northern Pack's alpha, a woman of power and prestige and political connections. A woman who could give him everything I couldn't, legitimacy, alliances, strength through unity. A woman who was everything I would never be. I felt something break inside me then. Not just my heart, that had already been shattered. No, this was deeper. This was my spirit, my sense of self-worth, my belief that I mattered in this world. He wasn't just rejecting me as his mate. He was replacing me before the bond had even finished dying. He was showing me and everyone else just how little I had meant to him. The meeting hall started to spin around me. I could feel my wolf, my beautiful silver wolf who had been so excited to finally meet her mate, curling up in pain deep inside my soul. She was whimpering, wounded, confused about why our mate would hurt us this way. And I had no answers for her. I had no comfort to offer. All I could do was endure. Someone I don't even remember, who tried to help me from the hall. But I shook them off. I would not give him the satisfaction of seeing me collapse. I would not give them all the spectacle they were clearly craving. So I lifted my chin, forced my trembling legs to move, and walked out of that hall with whatever scraps of dignity I could still claim. But the moment I was outside, the moment I was away from all those staring eyes and pitying looks and whispered judgments, I ran. I shifted into my wolf form right there in the pack. Square, something that was technically forbidden in the central areas, and I ran. I ran until my paws were bleeding, until my lungs were burning, until I was so far into the forest that I couldn't sense the pack bonds anymore. And then, only then, did I let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. I howled. Oh goddess, how I howled. My wolf's voice rose into the night sky, a song of such profound pain and loss that birds fled from the trees and small animals scattered in fear. It was the sound of a heart breaking, of a soul being torn in two, of a future being ripped away before it could even begin. And somewhere I knew Cale could hear it. Even with the mate bond severed, even with the distance between us, I knew my pain was reaching him. I hoped it hurt him. I hoped it tore at him the way his rejection had torn at me. I hoped he felt even a fraction of the agony he'd caused. But I doubted it. Because if he could stand before me and reject our bond with such cold indifference, what was my pain to him? What were my tears, my heartbreak, my shattered dreams? I was nothing to him. I had never been anything to him. And that realization, more than anything else, was what truly broke me. Days passed in a blur after that. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, that cold, distant expression as he threw away the greatest gift the moon goddess could bestow. Every time I tried to eat, my stomach would revolt, reminded somehow of the emptiness inside me where the mate bond used to live. My friends tried to help, tried to comfort me, but what could they say? What words existed that could heal a wound this deep? The physical symptoms of mate rejection are well documented in our histories. The weakness, the illness, the way your body literally starts to shut down because it's been denied its other half. But no amount of reading about it could have prepared me for the reality. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose. Dark circles appeared under my eyes that made me look haunted. My hair, once thick and lustrous, became dull and lifeless. I was dying, slowly but surely, from a broken heart. And through it all, life in the pack went on. Preparations began for the Alpha King's upcoming betrothal announcement. I heard the gossip, the excited chatter about the grand ceremony being planned, the alliance with the Northern Pack, the strength and beauty of Lyanna Blackwood. Each word was another cut, another reminder that I had been cast aside and forgotten. Some pack members avoided me, like rejection was contagious. Others offered sympathy that felt more like pity, and I hated them for it. I didn't want their pity. I didn't want their sad looks and their gentle pats on the shoulder and their assurances that I would find my place and move on and maybe meet someone else someday. As if there could be anyone else. As if the mate bond was something you could just replace, like a broken dish or a worn-out pair of shoes. But the worst were the ones who seemed to think the rejection was justified. The ones who whispered that maybe the Alpha King had seen something in me that made me unsuitable. Maybe I had some hidden flaw, some weakness that disqualified me from being Luna Queen. Maybe I should be grateful he discovered it before it was too late, before I embarrassed myself and the pack further. Their words burrowed into my brain like parasites, feeding on my insecurities and doubts. Maybe they were right. Maybe there was something fundamentally wrong with me. Maybe I was unworthy of love, of happiness, of the destiny I thought had been written in the stars. I started avoiding pack gatherings. I threw myself into my work at the healing center, losing myself in caring for others because I couldn't care for myself. I tended to every wound, every illness, every injury with a dedication that bordered on obsession. Because when I was working, when I was focused on someone else's pain, I could forget about my own. For a little while at least. My mentor, Elder Talia, watched me with concerned eyes. She was one of the few who didn't offer empty platitudes or useless advice. She just let me work, let me heal others while I slowly bled out inside. But one day, about a week after the rejection, she stopped me as I was leaving the healing center. "Selene," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot heal others when you yourself are dying." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that I was fine, that I was managing, that work was the only thing keeping me sane. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was a sob. And then another. And then I was crying in her arms like a child, all my carefully constructed walls crumbling to dust. Why? I choked out between sobs. Why would the moon goddess give me a mate only to have him reject me? What did I do to deserve this? What's wrong with me? Talia held me tighter, her old hands surprisingly strong as they rubbed soothing circles on my back. "There's nothing wrong with you, child," she whispered. "The fault lies not with you, but with him. He has chosen duty over destiny, and he will pay the price for that choice. They always do." But her words, meant to comfort, only made me cry harder. Because I didn't want him to pay a price. Even after everything he'd done to me, even after the way he'd humiliated and rejected me, some traitorous part of me still loved him. Still wanted him to be happy, even if that happiness was with someone else. And that, more than anything, showed me just how far gone I was. 6 months. 6 long, agonizing months since Cale Thorne ripped my heart out and stomped on it in front of the entire pack. You'd think that would be enough time to heal, wouldn't you? Enough time to move on, to rebuild, to become whole again. And I have changed. Goddess knows I'm not the same naive girl who walked into that pack meeting believing in fairy tales and happy endings. But healed? No. Not even close. The physical symptoms have faded at least. I no longer look like death warmed over. My hair has regained some of its shine. The dark circles under my eyes have lightened, and I've managed to put back on most of the weight I lost. On the outside, I probably look fine. Normal. Like just another member of the pack going about her daily life. But inside, I'm still screaming. The pain has changed, evolved into something different. It's no longer that sharp, acute agony that made it impossible to breathe. Now it's a dull, constant ache that I've learned to carry with me everywhere I go. It's the weight of absence, the ghost of what could have been, haunting every corner of my existence. I've learned to function around it, to build my life in the spaces between the hurt. But it never goes away. Not really. It just becomes part of who I am now, Selene, the rejected mate. Selene, the one who wasn't good enough. Selene, the cautionary tale. I've thrown myself into my work at the healing center with a fierce dedication that sometimes scares even me. I work double shifts, volunteer for the overnight rotations, take on the cases that other healers don't want to deal with. Because when I'm working, when my hands are busy and my mind is focused on someone else's suffering, I can almost forget about my own. Almost. Elder Talia worries about me. I can see it in the way she watches me, the way she gently suggests that maybe I should take a day off, go for a run in the forest, spend time with friends. But I can't. Because the moment I stop moving, the moment I let myself be still, the thoughts come flooding back. The what-ifs and the might-have-beens and the crushing weight of a future that will never exist. What would have been like to stand beside him as his Luna Queen? To bear his mark on my neck, his scent in my skin, his love in my heart. What would our pups have looked like? Would they have had his strong features and commanding presence, or my gentler nature and healing abilities? Would we have ruled the pack together, building something beautiful and strong and lasting? I'll never know. And that not knowing, that permanent state of wondering, is its own special kind of torture. The pack dynamics have shifted in ways both subtle and profound since that night. Some wolves still look at me with pity, though they've learned to hide it better. Others have started to treat me with a strange kind of respect, like surviving the rejection of an alpha king has somehow elevated my status. And then there are those who simply pretend it never happened, who interact with me as if I'm just another pack member, not the woman who is publicly rejected by their leader. I prefer the latter, if I'm being honest. The pity makes me want to rage. The respect feels unearned. But the indifference? The normalcy? That I can work with. That allows me to pretend, even if just for a moment, that I'm not broken. But then there are the reminders. Oh goddess, the constant, unavoidable reminders. Because Kale is still the alpha king, still the leader of our pack, and I can't escape him entirely. I see him at mandatory pack gatherings, at ceremonies, at meetings. And every single time, it's like tearing open a partially healed wound. Every time I catch a glimpse of him across a crowded room, my traitorous heart still skips a beat. Every time I hear his voice carrying across the pack square, my wolf still perks up with interest before I can shut her down. And the worst part? He looks miserable. Oh, he hides it well. He's the alpha king, after all, trained from birth to school his features and control his emotions. But I know him. Even now, even after everything, some part of me is still attuned to him in a way I can't explain. And I can see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile never quite reaches his eyes anymore. Is it wrong that seeing his pain brings me a bitter sort of satisfaction? Probably. But I'm past caring about right and wrong when it comes to Kale Thorne. He made his choice. He chose duty over destiny, power over love, political alliance over the mate bond. So, if he's suffering now, if he's regretting that choice, then good. Let him hurt the way I've hurt. Let him feel even a fraction of the agony he's caused me. But even as I think these vengeful thoughts, even as I tell myself I hate him for what he's done, I know it's a lie. Because late at night, when I'm alone in my small cottage at the edge of pack territory, when there's no one to see or judge or pity me, I still cry for what we could have been. I still mourn the loss of a future that was stolen from me. And yes, I still love him. Goddess help me, I still love the man who rejected me. The betrothal to Lyanna Blackwood was officially announced a month after the rejection, just as Kale had promised. The ceremony was grand, political, strategic, everything a union between two powerful packs should be. I didn't attend. I couldn't. I spent that day hidden away in my cottage, curled up in bed with my wolf whimpering in my mind, feeling the echo of what should have been my celebration twisted into something that had nothing to do with me. Lina visits the pack regularly now, preparing for her future role as Luna Queen. I've seen her from a distance, tall, beautiful, confident in a way I never was. She carries herself with the assurance of someone who has never been told she isn't good enough, someone who has never had to question her place in the world. And I hate her for it. Not because she's done anything wrong, she hasn't. She's probably a perfectly nice person who had no idea she was stepping into the role that should have been mine. But I hate her anyway, with a visceral intensity that sometimes scares me. Because every time I see her, I'm reminded that she gets everything I was denied. She gets to stand at Kale's side, to wear his mark, to bear his pups, to rule this pack as his Luna Queen. She gets the fairy tale ending while I'm left with the ashes of what might have been. My friends have tried to set me up with other males from the pack, well-meaning attempts to help me move on and find happiness again. But how do you explain to them that I can't? That the very thought of being with anyone else makes my skin crawl? The mate bond might be severed, but its ghost still lingers. I'm ruined for anyone else, marked by a connection that never got to fully form but was strong enough to leave permanent scars. I went on one date, just to get my friends to stop bothering me about it. Marcus, a warrior from the Southern Patrol, nice enough guy. He tried so hard to make conversation, to make me smile, to convince me that maybe there could be something between us. And I sat there feeling absolutely nothing. No spark, no interest, no desire. Just emptiness where those feelings should have been. He could sense it too. Wolves are nothing if not perceptive about these things. Halfway through dinner, he put down his fork and looked at me with something like sympathy in his eyes. "You're still in love with him, aren't you?" he asked quietly. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to lie and say I was over Kale, that I was ready to move on, that I could be the kind of woman who could date other men and laugh and flirt and fall in love again. But the words wouldn't come. So I just nodded, tears pricking at my eyes, and Marcus was kind enough not to push it further. We never went out again. Word spread, as it always does in a pack, and the matchmaking attempt stopped. Now people just leave me alone, which is both a relief and its own kind of loneliness. I've built a life in the margins of the pack. I work, I help others, I exist. But I'm not really living. I'm just surviving, day by day, moment by moment. And sometimes I wonder if this is all there is for me now. If this half-life, this shadow existence, is all I get because I was unlucky enough to be fated to an alpha who valued duty over love. The dreams are the worst part, because while I can control my thoughts during the day, while I can keep myself busy enough to avoid dwelling on what I've lost, I have no control over my subconscious. And nearly every night, I dream of him. Sometimes they're memories, the brief, shining moment when our eyes first met and the mate bond snapped into place, the way his scent wrapped around me like a promise, the hunger I saw in his gaze before he shut it down. Other times they're fantasies of what could have been, him claiming me, marking me, loving me the way a mate should. And then I wake up. I wake up to an empty bed, an empty life, an empty future. And the pain of that awakening is almost as sharp as the original rejection. I've started avoiding pack runs. The monthly gathering where all the wolves shift and run together through our territory used to be one of my favorite traditions.
But now?
Now it's just another reminder of everything I've lost. Because I can feel Kale's presence even when I can't see him, that phantom echo of the bond we once shared still connecting us in some fundamental way. And feeling him, sensing him, knowing he's close but forever out of reach, it's torture. So I make excuses. I'm needed at the healing center. I'm not feeling well. I'm working on a difficult case. Anything to avoid being in wolf form around him because my wolf is even more broken than I am. She still wants him, still whines for her mate, still doesn't understand why he rejected us, why we can't be together. And I have no answers for her that don't break both our hearts all over again. Elder Talia found me crying in the supply room of the healing center about a month ago. I thought I'd been quiet, that no one would hear me, but somehow she always knows. She sat down beside me on the floor, her old bones creaking, and didn't say anything for a long time. Just sat with me while I sobbed out my pain and frustration and rage. "It's not fair," I choked out between tears. Why did this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? Nothing, child, Talia said softly. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes fate is cruel. Sometimes the moon goddess tests us in ways we don't understand. Then I wish she'd chosen someone else for this particular test, I said bitterly. Because I'm tired, Talia. I'm so tired of hurting. So tired of loving someone who threw me away. So tired of living in the shadow of what could have been. She pulled me close, let me cry into her shoulder, like I was still a pup. You're stronger than you know, Selene, she whispered. And this pain, as terrible as it is shaping you into someone extraordinary. You're not the naive girl you were 6 months ago. You've been forged in fire, and you've emerged as steel. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that this suffering had some purpose, that I was becoming stronger rather than just more broken. But in that moment, all I felt was tired. So desperately, bone-deep tired. And yet I keep going. I keep working, keep healing others, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Because what else can I do? Give up? Let the rejection win? Let Kale's choice destroy me completely?
No.
I won't give him that satisfaction. I won't let him see just how thoroughly he's broken me. So I wear a mask during the day. I smile when I'm supposed to smile, laugh when something is funny, engage in small talk with pack members. I perform the role of Selene who's fine, with an Oscar-worthy dedication. And only when I'm alone, only in the dark quiet of my cottage at night, do I let the mask slip. Only then do I allow myself to feel the full weight of my grief and loss and rage. Because I am angry. Oh, goddess, am I angry? Beneath the pain and the sadness and the longing, there's a core of pure, white-hot fury. Angry at Kale for rejecting me. Angry at the moon goddess for pairing us in the first place if he was just going to throw it away. Angry at myself for still loving him after everything he's done. Angry at the pack for moving on like my heart wasn't shattered in front of all of them. Angry at the entire world for being so fundamentally unfair. Sometimes that anger is the only thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. It burns in my chest, fuels my movements, gives me the strength to face another day. And I nurture it, feed it, let it grow because it's easier to be angry than to be broken. Rage is powerful. Rage is active. Rage doesn't leave you curled up in a ball crying for what you've lost. But even anger can't fill the void where the mate bond used to be. Even fury can't make me whole again. So I exist in this strange limbo between rage and despair, between moving on and standing still, between hating Kale Thorne and loving him so much it physically hurts. And through it all, life in the pack continues. Seasons change. Warriors train.
Pups are born.
The world spins on, indifferent to my suffering. And I spin with it, caught in this orbit around a sun I can never touch, burning up slowly, but never quite turning to ash. 6 months. It feels like a lifetime. It feels like yesterday. Time has lost all meaning in this new reality, where I'm not quite living but not quite dead either. I'm just existing, surviving, enduring. And I wonder, in my darkest moments, if this is all there will ever be for me. If I'm doomed to spend the rest of my life haunted by the ghost of a bond that never got to fully form, loving a man who doesn't want me, mourning a future that was stolen before it could begin. But then the sun rises on another day and I drag myself out of bed and I go to the healing center and I help someone, and for just a moment, I remember that there's still good in this world. Still purpose. Still reasons to keep fighting, even when everything inside me wants to give up. So I do. I keep fighting.
Keep surviving.
Keep existing in this half-life. That's all I have left. Because what other choice do I have? The message arrived on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays are my long shift days at the healing center when I work from dawn until well past dark helping with the weekly pack health assessments. I was exhausted, my feet aching, my back sore from bending over examination tables all day. All I wanted was to go home, collapse into bed, and let unconsciousness claim me for a few hours before I had to do it all over again. But when I opened my cottage door, there it was. A small, sealed envelope sitting on my kitchen table. My first thought was confusion. I hadn't heard anyone enter, and my cottage wards should have alerted me to any intrusion. My second thought was fear, because strange messages appearing in locked homes never meant anything good. I approached it slowly, cautiously, like it might explode at any moment. The envelope was expensive, thick parchment with a wax seal I didn't recognize. My name was written across it in elegant script that I'd never seen before. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The message was brief. Devastatingly, world-shatteringly brief. The pups are yours. 4 words. That's all it took to turn my entire world upside down again. 4 simple words that made no sense but also made perfect, terrible sense all at once. I dropped into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. The pups. Plural. Pups that apparently belonged to Kale. But how? When? He was betrothed to Lyanna. Was this message meant for her? Had it somehow been delivered to the wrong address?
But no.
My name was on the envelope. Someone had specifically placed this message in my home, meant for my eyes only. The pups are yours. I stared at those 4 words until they started to blur, my mind racing through possibilities.
It had to be a mistake.
Or a cruel joke. Someone's idea of twisting the knife that was already buried in my heart. Because how could there be pups? We hadn't. And then I remembered. One single night before the rejection, when Kale had shown up at my cottage after a pack meeting. He'd been agitated, restless, his wolf riding him hard. He said he needed to talk, needed to see me, needed to understand the pull between us before he made his decision about accepting the mate bond. We talked for hours. About pack politics, about duty, about the pressure on him to make strategic alliances. And then, in a moment of weakness, or maybe strength, I still don't know, we'd given in to the pull between us. Not completely, not the full mating that would have bonded us permanently, but enough. More than enough. It was the night before he rejected me. My first and only time with my fated mate, stolen hours of passion and connection that I'd replayed in my mind 1,000 times since then. The memory of his hands on my skin, his lips on mine, the way he'd held me afterward like I was something precious and breakable. And then the very next day, he'd thrown me away. But if that night had resulted in no, it wasn't possible. I would have known, wouldn't I? I'm a healer, for goddess's sake. I know the signs of pregnancy, the early symptoms, the changes in scent and body chemistry that wolves can detect. Except I'd been so consumed by grief and pain after the rejection that I hadn't been paying attention to my own body. I'd attributed the nausea to heartbreak, the fatigue to sleepless nights, the changes in my scent to the severing of the mate bond. I'd been so focused on surviving the emotional devastation that I'd completely missed the physical signs. With shaking hands, I placed my palm over my still flat stomach, reached out with my healer senses, something I should have done months ago if I hadn't been so lost in my own misery. And there it was, the unmistakable flutter of life. No, not life, lives. Plural. 2 distinct heartbeats, faint but growing stronger, pulsing in rhythm with my own. Twins. I was carrying Kale's twins. Had been for months, apparently, and I'd been too wrapped up in my own pain to notice. The world tilted sideways. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was sick, my body purging as my mind tried desperately to process this new reality. Pregnant. I was pregnant with the pups of the alpha king who rejected me. Pregnant with babies who would grow up knowing their father chose duty over them, chose another woman over their mother, chose everything else over the possibility of a family with me. How is this possible? We'd been so careful that night. Or, at least, I thought we had. But mate bonds are powerful, and fertility between true mates is notoriously hard to prevent. The moon goddess has her own plans, and apparently, this was one of them. I slumped against the bathroom wall, my hand still pressed to my stomach where my pups, my goddess, my pups, were growing. A hysterical laugh bubbled up from my chest. Of course this would happen to me. As if the rejection wasn't enough, as if the last 6 months of agony and heartbreak weren't sufficient punishment, now I had to deal with this. But even as the panic threatened to overwhelm me, Even as 1,000 terrifying questions crowded my mind, I felt something else. Something unexpected and powerful and fierce. Protection. A primal, overwhelming need to protect the lives growing inside me. These pups didn't ask to be conceived under such complicated circumstances. They didn't ask for a father who would reject their mother, or for a mother who was barely holding herself together. But they were mine. They were part of me. And I would die before I let anyone hurt them. The message sat on my kitchen table, mocking me with its simplicity. The pups are yours. But who had sent it? And more importantly, did this mean Kale knew? Had he somehow found out about the pregnancy? Was this his way of acknowledging it while still maintaining his distance? A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Of course he would handle it this way. A cryptic note instead of actually facing me, actually talking to me about the life-changing fact that he'd fathered children with the mate he rejected. Because why would he break his pattern of cowardice now? But wait. The message said the pups were yours, singular, not ours. Did that mean he was disclaiming them? Acknowledging their existence, but wanting nothing to do with them? The thought made my blood boil.
How dare he?
How dare he reject not only me, but the innocent lives we'd created together? Except I didn't actually know if the message was from Kale. It could be from someone else entirely. Someone who discovered my secret. A secret I apparently hadn't even known I was keeping, and was now trying to what? Warn me? Threaten me? Inform me? I picked up the envelope again, studying the wax seal more carefully. It was elegant, formal, but bore no pack insignia I recognized. The handwriting was neat, but unfamiliar. There were no other clues, no hints about who had sent this or why. My mind spun with possibilities, each more concerning than the last. If Kale knew about the pups, what would he do? Would he try to take them from me? Claim them as his heirs despite rejecting their mother? Or would he try to hide their existence, unwilling to let them complicate his political marriage to Lyanna? And if he didn't know if this message was from someone else, then who? And what did they hope to accomplish by revealing this to me, or to him, if that was their intention? I thought about the implications of raising Kale's pups alone, the scandal it would cause, the questions it would raise, the judgment I would face as a rejected mate bearing the Alpha King's children. The pack would talk. They always did. Some would pity me even more than they already did. Others would be scandalized, would whisper about how I must have seduced him, trapped him, done something inappropriate to end up pregnant despite being rejected. And the pups themselves, what kind of life would they have? Growing up knowing their father was the Alpha King, but that he'd chosen another woman over their mother? Knowing they were what? Illegitimate? Unwanted? Mistakes? The thought made me sick all over again.
No.
No, my pups would never be mistakes. They would never be unwanted. Whatever else happened, whatever mess I had to navigate, I would make sure they knew they were loved.
Cherished.
Wanted by their mother even if their father had rejected us all. But could I do this alone? Could I raise 2 pups, alpha pups, if I knew anything about genetics, by myself? I had my work at the healing center, but that barely paid enough to support me, let alone 2 growing children. I'd need help, support, resources I didn't have. And there was the health aspect to consider. Wolf pregnancies were already risky, but pregnancies resulting from fated mates were especially complicated. The bond between parent and pup ran deep, almost as deep as the mate bond itself. And when that mate bond was severed, rejected, I didn't know what that would mean for the pup's development. Would they be affected by the broken bond between their parents? Would they sense the absence of their father, the rejection that had colored their conception? I was a healer. I should know these things. But my training had focused on treating injuries and illnesses, not the complex metaphysical implications of rejected mate bonds and the children that resulted from them. I needed answers. I needed information. I needed Elder Talia. The thought of telling anyone about this pregnancy filled me with dread, but if anyone could help me navigate this impossible situation, it was her. She'd been a healer for over 60 years. If anyone knew what I was facing, what risks the pups might be under, it would be her. But telling her meant making this real. Saying the words out loud would cement the truth in a way that just knowing couldn't. And once I told one person, the secret would spread. Pack bonds meant privacy was almost impossible to maintain. People would know. Kale would know. And then what? I looked down at the message again, those 4 words that had upended my world. Part of me wanted to burn it, to destroy the evidence, and pretend this had never happened. But I couldn't. Because pregnant or not, message or not, nothing changed the fundamental truth. I was carrying Kale's pups. And I had to figure out what to do about it. The protective instinct surged through me again, stronger this time. My hand splayed across my stomach, feeling for those tiny heartbeats I'd somehow missed for months. They were there, steady and strong, growing inside me. My babies. My pups.
Mine.
And in that moment, I made a decision. Whatever happened, whatever complications arose, whatever scandal this caused, I would protect them. I would be strong for them. They deserved better than a mother who was falling apart, better than parents who weren't together, better than the complicated mess their existence represented. They deserved everything. And somehow, someway, I would give it to them. Even if it meant facing Kale again. Even if it meant enduring more judgment and whispers and pitying looks. Even if it meant standing alone against the entire pack if necessary. Because I wasn't just Selene anymore, the rejected mate trying to survive each day. I was going to be a mother. And mothers didn't have the luxury of falling apart. Mothers had to be strong. So I would be. For them, I would be. I folded the message carefully and tucked it away in a drawer. Tomorrow, I would go see Elder Talia. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out how to navigate this new reality. Tomorrow, I would begin planning for a future that included 2 tiny lives depending on me. But tonight, I let myself feel the full weight of what this meant. I sat in my dark cottage, hand on my stomach, and cried. Not tears of pain this time, but something more complex. Grief for the family we should have been, fear for the future, and underneath it all, a tiny kernel of joy. Because despite everything, despite the rejection and the pain and the impossible complications, I was going to be a mother. And maybe, just maybe, that was a gift worth fighting for. Even if it came wrapped in the worst possible circumstances. Even if it meant my heart would break all over again. Even if Kale never wanted us. These pups were mine. And I would move heaven and earth to keep them safe. I don't know when Kale found out about the pups. I don't know who told him. Whether that mysterious message was also delivered to him, or if pack gossip finally reached his ears, or if some other force of fate decided he deserved to know that he'd fathered children with the mate he so callously rejected. But I know the exact moment when he started looking for me because I felt it in my bones. That phantom connection, that ghost of a bond that never fully formed but never fully died either, suddenly flared to life with an intensity one hadn't felt in months. He was hunting, and I was his prey. It started 3 days after I told Elder Talia about the pregnancy. She'd been shocked, of course, but professional. She examined me thoroughly, confirmed what I already knew. Twins, healthy so far, about 4 months along based on the development I'd somehow missed while drowning in my own misery. She warned me about the risks, about the complications that could arise from a severed mate bond, about the importance of taking care of myself for the pup's sake, if not my own. And then, because she was Elder Talia, and she never could keep her mouth completely shut when she thought someone was being an idiot, she'd looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Does the Alpha King know?" "I don't know," I'd answered honestly. "Someone sent me a message saying the pups are yours, but I don't know who it was from or what it meant." She'd frowned at that, concern creasing her weathered features. "This needs to stay quiet for now, Selene. At least until you've decided how you want to handle it. The political implications alone." "I know." I cut her off. Because I did know. I'd spent 3 sleepless nights thinking about nothing but the political implications, the scandal, the mess this would create. I need time. Just time to figure out what I'm going to do. But time, apparently, was the one thing I wasn't going to get. I first noticed the warriors. They started appearing around the healing center, always claiming they needed treatment for minor injuries that could have easily been handled by the junior healers.
But they watched me.
Studied me. And when I moved through the pack territory, I'd catch glimpses of them in my peripheral vision, shadowing my movements.
They were subtle about it.
If I didn't know better, I might have thought I was being paranoid. But I'm a wolf, and we know when we're being tracked. The question was why. Had Kale ordered them to watch me? To report on my activities? To confirm the pregnancy rumors before he made his move? The thought filled me with a cold dread. Because I knew Kale, knew the way his mind worked. He wouldn't ignore this. He couldn't. These pups were his heirs, his blood, and he was an alpha to his core. Alphas protected what was theirs, claimed what belonged to them, controlled their bloodline with an iron fist. Never mind that he'd rejected me. Never mind that he was betrothed to another woman. Never mind that he'd made it abundantly clear 6 months ago that I wasn't wanted. The pups changed everything, and I knew that he would come for them. The question was what he planned to do when he found me. I started varying my routes home from the healing center. Started checking the wards on my cottage multiple times a day. Started sleeping with one ear open, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. Because it was coming. I could feel it building like a storm on the horizon, dark and ominous, and impossible to avoid. Elder Talia noticed my increased paranoia. "You can't hide forever, child," she said gently one evening as I was preparing to leave the healing center through the back entrance for the 3rd time that week. "I'm not hiding," I lied. "I'm just being cautious." "You're running," she corrected. "But you can't outrun an alpha king who's decided he wants to find you. And you shouldn't have to. Those pups deserve a father, even if he is a stubborn, duty-bound fool who doesn't deserve you." "He rejected me," I reminded her, anger sharpening my voice. "He stood in front of the entire pack and severed our mate bond. He doesn't get to suddenly decide he wants to be involved just because I'm carrying his heirs. He made his choice. And now he's living with the consequences of that choice," Talia said quietly. "As are you. As will these innocent pups who didn't ask to be born into this mess. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I didn't have an answer for her. Because what could I do?
Run?
Leave the pack entirely? That would mean abandoning everything, my home, my work, my friends, the only life I'd ever known. And even then, where would I go? A pregnant Omega traveling alone would be vulnerable, and as soon as these pups were born, their scent would mark them as alpha-blooded. Every pack we encountered would know they were children of power, and some might try to use that knowledge against us.
Stay?
Face Kale and whatever plan he had for claiming the pups while keeping me at arm's length? Let him take my children and raise them with his political bride while I watched from the sidelines, forever the rejected mate who just happened to bear his heirs? Neither option was acceptable. Neither option gave my pups the family they deserved. The breaking point came on a Friday night, 2 weeks after the message arrived. I was home, trying to relax despite the constant vigilance that had become my new normal, when I felt it. That presence. Powerful, commanding, achingly familiar. Kale was at my door. My heart lurched into my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to hide, to run, to avoid this confrontation that had been building for weeks. But I was so tired of running. So tired of being afraid. So tired of letting him dictate the terms of our interaction, even after everything he'd done. So I stood, squared my shoulders, placed one protective hand over the barely there swell of my stomach where his pups were growing, and I walked to the door. He stood on my porch looking like hell. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, hair uncombed, jaw unshaven, clothes rumpled like he'd been wearing them for days. The shadows under his eyes were so dark they looked like bruises. And when his gaze met mine, the hunger and pain and desperation I saw there nearly broke my resolve. "Selene," he breathed my name like a prayer, like an apology, like a plea for forgiveness all wrapped into one. "You have no right to be here," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "You severed our bond.
You rejected me.
You chose your duty over me, remember? So whatever you think you want now, whatever you think gives you the right to show up at my door after months of silence, you're wrong."
Leave.
"The pups," he started, "are mine." I cut him off, my voice rising. "Mine, Kale. You don't get to claim them. You don't get to suddenly care about them just because they exist.
You rejected me.
You rejected any future we might have had together. That includes these babies. His face twisted with something that looked like agony. I didn't know, he said hoarsely. If I had known you were pregnant, you would have what? I demanded. Rejected me anyway? Kept your political engagement to Lina anyway? Or would you have suddenly changed your mind about duty being more important than destiny? Don't lie to me, Kale. Don't stand here and pretend that knowing about the pups would have changed anything about your precious sense of duty to the pack. It would have, he insisted, taking a step toward me. I backed up instinctively, maintaining the distance between us. Selene, please. I made a mistake. I've been living in hell for the past 6 months, knowing I rejected the one person in this world who is meant for me. And now, knowing that you're carrying my pups, that I could have had a family with you. Could have had. I laughed bitterly. Kale, you still could. Nothing is stopping you except your own stubborn pride and your obsession with duty. You chose Lina. You chose the alliance with the Northern Pack. You chose everything else over me. So don't stand here now and tell me you're suffering when you're the one who created this entire mess. I broke it off, he said quietly. I froze. What? The betrothal to Lina. I ended it 3 days ago. She's back with her pack, and the alliance discussions have been terminated. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. Because you're right. I did choose wrong. I let duty and responsibility blind me to what actually mattered. And I've spent the last 6 months in agony, knowing I threw away the most precious gift the moon goddess could give me. I wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted his words to soothe the raw, bleeding wound in my chest. But instead, I just felt angry. Angrier than I'd ever been in my life. You ended it 3 days ago? I shouted. 6 months, Kale. It took you 6 months to figure out you made a mistake? 6 months of me suffering. Of me trying to piece my life back together, of me learning to live with the pain of rejection? And now you show up here probably only because you found out about the pups, and you expect me to what? Forgive you? Welcome you back with open arms? Act like the last 6 months of hell didn't happen. No, he said softly. I don't expect any of that. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be undone. But these pups, Selene, they're innocent in all this. They deserve to have both their parents. They deserve a family. They have a parent. I shot back. They have me. And that's going to have to be enough because I will not allow you back into my life just because it's suddenly convenient for you. You rejected our bond. You rejected our future. You don't get to cherry pick what parts you want now that the consequences of your actions are staring you in the face. The pain in his eyes was so intense, it was almost physical. What do you want from me, Selene? What can I do to make this right? Nothing, I said, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to stay strong. There's nothing you can do because you can't undo the rejection. You can't give me back those 6 months of suffering. You can't erase the public humiliation, the grief, the feeling that I wasn't good enough for you. You broke something in me, Kale. Something that might never heal. And now you expect me to trust you with my heart again? To believe that this time you'll choose me, choose us, choose love over duty? I can't. I can't. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I hated myself for showing weakness in front of him. But I couldn't help it. The floodgates had opened, and 6 months of repressed emotion came pouring out. I loved you, I sobbed. I loved you from the moment the mate bond snapped into place. I would have given you everything, my heart, my loyalty, my very soul. And you threw it away like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. And now you want me to believe you've changed? That you've suddenly realized what you lost? I don't believe you, Kale. I don't believe you actually want me. I think you want the pups. I think you want your heirs and your bloodline secured, and I just happen to be the inconvenient vessel carrying them. That's not true, he said vehemently, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. Selene, you have to believe me. This isn't about the pups. Yes. Learning about them made me realize I couldn't wait anymore, couldn't keep wallowing in my own misery and guilt. But I've been trying to find a way back to you since the day after I rejected you. I've been dying inside, knowing what I'd done, knowing I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was a coward who hid behind duty rather than fighting for what I really wanted. Then you should have fought for me 6 months ago. I screamed. You should have stood in front of that pack and claimed me, not rejected me. You should have told your advisors and your council and everyone else that fate brought us together and damn the political consequences. But you didn't. You chose the easy path, the path of duty and responsibility and strategic alliance. And now you want me to believe you're ready to fight for me? Now that I'm pregnant with your heirs and you don't have a choice anymore? I always had a choice, Kale said quietly. And I made the wrong one. But I'm choosing you now, Selene. I'm choosing us. I'm choosing love over duty, destiny over politics.
Please.
Give me a chance to prove it to you. I looked at him standing there, this powerful alpha king reduced to begging on my doorstep, and I felt nothing. Or no, not nothing. I felt so many things it was like emotional overload, leaving me numb and empty and unable to process any of it. I need you to leave, I said finally, exhaustion weighing down every word. I can't do this right now. I can't hear your apologies or your promises or your pleas for forgiveness. I need you to go. Selene. Go! I shouted, slamming my hand against the doorframe. Leave me alone, Kale. You've done enough damage. Just go. For a long moment, he stood there, and I could see the battle raging behind his eyes. His wolf was probably demanding he stay, demanding he fight for his mate and his pups. But some shred of respect for my wishes must have won out because he finally stepped back. I'm not giving up, he said quietly. On you, on us, on the family we could have. I know I have to earn your trust back. I know I have to prove that I've changed, that I'm choosing you for real this time. And I will, Selene. However long it takes, whatever I have to do, I will prove it to you. And then he was gone, disappearing into the night like a shadow. I closed the door and slid down it until I was sitting on the floor, trembling all over. My pups kicked, the first time I'd felt the move, as if responding to my emotional turmoil. I placed both hands over my stomach, taking deep breaths, trying to calm down for their sake, if not my own. He'd ended the betrothal. He was claiming to choose me now. He seemed genuine in his regret and his desire to make things right. But could I trust him? Could I risk my heart again with a man who'd already shattered it once? Could I let him into my life, into my pups' lives, knowing he might change his mind again when duty called? I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. And that uncertainty, more than anything else, terrified me. Because I wanted to believe him. Goddess help me, some traitorous part of my heart still loved him, still yearned for the mate bond we never got to complete. But the rest of me, the part that had survived his rejection, that had learned to be strong on my own, that had built walls around my heart specifically to protect it from him, that part screamed that trusting him again would be the biggest mistake of my life. So I sat there on my floor, hands on my growing belly, and cried. For what we could have been. For what we might never be. For the choice I had to make that would affect not just me, but the 2 innocent lives depending on me to make the right decision. And I had absolutely no idea what that decision should be. 3 weeks. That's how long Kale gave me before he showed up at my door again. 3 weeks of space that felt less like respect for my boundaries and more like the calm before a storm. I knew he was planning something. I could feel it in the way he watched me during pack gatherings I couldn't avoid, in the way his presence seemed to press against my consciousness even from across the territory, in the phantom throb of the broken bond that never quite healed. And goddess, did he watch me? Every pack meeting, every mandatory gathering, every time I ventured out of my cottage, I could feel his eyes on me, tracking my movements, cataloging every change in my body as the pregnancy became more obvious, noting when I grew tired, when I needed to rest, when I unconsciously placed a protective hand over the growing swell of my stomach. It was maddening, infuriating, and somewhere deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, it felt like protection, like he was standing guard even from a distance, ready to intervene if anything threatened me or the pups. But I couldn't let myself soften toward that feeling. Couldn't let myself believe that his watchfulness meant anything more than possessiveness over his unborn heirs. When he finally came to me again, it wasn't at my cottage. No, Kale had apparently learned from his last attempt. Instead, he found me in a place I couldn't easily escape, the sacred grove near the heart of Pack territory, where I'd gone to find some peace and clarity. The grove was ancient, blessed by the moon goddess herself according to Pack lore. Towering oak trees formed a natural cathedral, their branches intertwining overhead to create a canopy that filtered the sunlight into soft, golden beams. A small spring bubbled up from the earth at the center, its water said to have healing properties. It was the one place on Pack lands where I felt truly safe, truly at peace. Until Kale walked into it. I sensed him before I saw him. That prickling awareness along my spine that no amount of severed bonds could erase. I didn't turn around. I kept my gaze fixed on the spring, my hands folded over my stomach where the pups were active today, tumbling and kicking like they could sense their father's proximity. "You followed me," I said flatly. "I needed to talk to you somewhere you couldn't slam a door in my face," he admitted, his voice carrying across the grove. "So you stalked me to the one place I come to escape the Pack? To escape you." I finally turned to face him, anger making my words sharp. "This is my sanctuary, Kale. The one place that was just mine. And you've invaded it." He flinched at the accusation.
Good.
Let him hurt. Let him feel even a fraction of the violation I felt having him here, in this sacred space. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "but you won't talk to me anywhere else. You avoid me at Pack gatherings. You don't answer when I try to reach out through the Pack bonds. You've warded your cottage against me specifically. What else was I supposed to do? Respect my wishes and leave me alone?" I suggested acidly. "I told you I needed space. I told you I wasn't ready to hear your apologies or your promises. But apparently, what I want doesn't matter. Again.
Still.
Always." "That's not fair," Kale protested. "Not fair." I laughed, the sound bitter and harsh. "You want to talk about fair, Kale?
Let me tell you about fair.
Fair would have been you accepting our mate bond instead of rejecting me in front of the entire Pack. Fair would have been you choosing love over political expediency. Fair would have been you treating me like I mattered instead of like I was an inconvenient complication to your perfectly planned life. But we don't live in a fair world, do we? So forgive me if I don't particularly care about your sense of fairness right now." He took a step toward me and I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Don't," I warned. "Don't come any closer. Say whatever you came here to say, but keep your distance. I can't think clearly when you're too close." Something flashed in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or triumph at the admission that his proximity affected me. But he stayed where he was, and for that small mercy I was grateful. "The Pack is suffering," he said finally, and my eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" "Since the rejection. Since I refused our mate bond and tried to mate with Lina instead. The Pack is weaker than it's been in generations. Disputes that should be easily settled are escalating into serious conflicts. The junior wolves are restless and aggressive. Our defenses are deteriorating. And the other packs in the region are starting to notice." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought choosing duty and alliance would make the Pack stronger. But I was wrong, Selene. So devastatingly wrong. I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "So, let me get this straight. You're here because the Pack is having problems? You want me to what exactly? Fix it? Come back and play Luna, so your wolves behave better? Is that what this is about?" "No," he said vehemently. "I'm not explaining this well. I'm not here because the Pack needs you, although they do. I'm here because I need you. Because I was a fool who threw away the most precious thing in my life, and I've been paying for that mistake every single day since. And yet you only came after me once you found out about the pups," I shot back. "If I wasn't pregnant, would you have broken off your betrothal? Would you have decided you needed me? Or would you still be planning your political marriage to Lina while I suffered alone?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with accusation. I watched his face, waiting for the lie, the pretty words that would try to smooth over the painful truth. But instead, he did something unexpected. He told me the truth. I don't know, he admitted quietly. I've asked myself the same question 100 times. Would I have been strong enough to end the betrothal without the pups forcing the issue? I'd like to think yes. I'd like to believe that I would have eventually found the courage to choose you, to hell with the political consequences. But honestly, Selene, I don't know. And that makes me the worst kind of coward. The honesty shocked me. I'd expected excuses, justifications, claims that he'd always planned to come back to me. This raw admission of his own weakness was unexpected. And somehow, it hurt worse than any lie could have. At least you're finally being honest, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But that doesn't change anything, Kale. You still rejected me. You still chose wrong. And whether you would have eventually chosen differently is irrelevant, because you didn't choose differently until you were forced to. You're right, he agreed, and that shocked me too. You're absolutely right. I rejected you when I should have fought for you. I chose what I thought was duty when I should have chosen love. And I waited until circumstances forced my hand instead of being brave enough to make the right choice on my own. I own all of that, Selene. I won't make excuses for it. Then what do you want from me? I demanded, exhaustion creeping into my voice. Why are you here if not to make excuses? If not to convince me that everything is fine now and we can just, start over? Pretend the rejection never happened. I'm here to fight for you, he said simply.
For us. For the family we could be.
I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I've broken your trust in ways that might be irreparable. But I also know that I love you, Selene. I love you in a way I didn't think I was capable of loving anyone. And I'm not going to give up on us just because I screwed up. Just because it's hard. Just because you're rightfully furious with me. Those 3 words, I love you, hit me like a physical blow. Because I'd waited so long to hear them. I'd dreamed of them during those brief days when I thought we might have a future together. I'd grieved for them during the long months after he rejected me. And now, hearing them spoken aloud, they felt like both a balm and a brand. You don't get to say that to me, I said, tears burning my eyes. You don't get to tell me you love me after what you've done. Love doesn't reject. Love doesn't destroy. Love doesn't choose duty over the person who's supposed to matter most. What you feel isn't love, Kale. It's guilt. It's regret. It's a desperate attempt to fix your mistake now that the consequences are staring you in the face. No, he said firmly, and there was such conviction in his voice that I almost believed him. What I felt 6 months ago, that was fear masquerading as duty. Fear of what choosing you would mean, what I would have to sacrifice, how it would change everything I thought I knew about myself and my role as alpha. I was a coward, and I let that fear drive me to make the worst decision of my life.
But what I feel now.
What I've felt every day since I rejected you. That's love, Selene. Real, painful, all-consuming love that won't let me rest, won't let me move on, won't let me be happy without you. Stop, I whispered, but he continued. I dream about you every night. I wake up reaching for you, my wolf howling for his mate. I can't eat, can't sleep properly, can't focus on pack business because all I can think about is you. About what I lost. About what I threw away. And yes, finding out about the pups gave me the push I needed to finally take action, but I've been in agony since the moment I rejected you. Every single
day.
Good, I said viciously. I hope you've been in agony. I hope you've suffered a fraction of what I've suffered. Because while you were having your crisis of conscience, I was dying inside. While you were debating whether to break off your betrothal, I was trying to piece myself back together. While you were dreaming about me, I was crying myself to sleep every night, wondering what was so wrong with me that my own fated mate would reject me. My voice broke on the last word, and damn it, I was crying again. I seemed to do nothing but cry anymore. A cry and rage and hurt in an endless cycle that I couldn't escape. Nothing is wrong with you, Kale said urgently. Selene, please believe me. The flaw wasn't in you. It was in me. You were perfect. You are perfect. Everything I could have wanted in a mate. And I was too blind and stupid and scared to see it until it was too late. It is too late, I told him. Don't you understand that? You can't undo the rejection. You can't take back the words you said in front of the entire pack. You can't give me back the 6 months I spent learning to live with a broken heart. It's too late, Kale. It's not, he insisted, and now he did move closer, closing the distance between us despite my earlier warning. It's not too late, Selene. We can still have a future together. We can still be a family. I know it won't be easy. I know you don't trust me, and I know I have to earn that trust back. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes. However long it takes. I'll prove to you that I'm choosing you, that I'm choosing us, that I'm never going to abandon you again. I wanted to believe him. Oh, goddess, how badly I wanted to believe that the conviction in his voice, the desperation in his eyes, the way his hands trembled as he reached for me but stopped just short of touching, that all of it was real, that he truly meant what he was saying. But I'd believed before. I'd believed the mate bond was real and unbreakable. I'd believed we were destined for each other. I'd believed in fairy tale endings and true love conquering all. And look where that had gotten me. What about the pack? I asked, grasping for logical objections because my emotional defenses were crumbling. You said they're suffering. Won't binding yourself to a rejected mate make things worse? Won't the other pack see it as weakness? Let them, Kale said fiercely. Let them think whatever they want. I don't care about political alliances anymore, Selene. I don't care about appearing strong or strategic or whatever other image I was trying to maintain. All I care about is you. You and our pups. That's it. Everything else can burn for all I care. You say that now, I challenged. But what happens when duty calls again? When the pack needs you to make a hard choice? When choosing me conflicts with choosing what's best for everyone else? What then, Kale? Do you reject me again? Do our pups grow up watching their father choose the pack over their mother over and over until they learn that love is conditional and duty always wins? The question hung between us, raw and painful, because that was the real issue, wasn't it? Not whether he loved me now, but whether he would continue to choose me when it was hard.
When it cost him something.
When love and duty inevitably came into conflict again. I choose you, Kale said, his voice breaking. No matter what.
No matter when.
No matter what it costs. I choose you, Selene. Always. I swear it on my life, on my position as Alpha, on the moon goddess herself. I choose you. And then he did something I never expected. He dropped to his knees in front of me, his head bowed in the traditional position of submission. An alpha, the alpha king, submitting to an omega. It was unheard of. It was shocking. It was, get up, I said shakily. Kale, get up. You can't, you shouldn't. I'm proving it to you, he said, still on his knees, still with his head bowed. I'm showing you that you matter more than pride, more than position, more than anything else. I submit to you, Selene. I give you my authority, my strength, my very self. I am yours if you'll have me. Completely and utterly yours. My hands shook as I reached down, unable to bear seeing him like this even after everything he'd done to me. Stand up, I whispered. Please, Kale. Stand up. He rose slowly, and when his eyes met mine, I saw tears tracking down his cheeks. The mighty Alpha King, crying.
For me.
Because of me. I love you, he said again. And I know I've destroyed your trust. I know you have every reason to tell me to leave and never come back. But I'm begging you, Selene. Give me a chance. Just one chance to prove that I've changed.
That I mean what I say.
That I will choose you every single day for the rest of our lives. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth written in every line of his face. The love, the regret, the desperate hope. And I felt my carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. But walls existed for a reason. They protected. They kept us safe from being hurt again. I can't, I whispered, even as my heart screamed at me to say yes. I can't just trust you again, Kale. I can't just forgive you and pretend everything is fine. You broke me. You absolutely shattered me. And I've spent 6 months trying to put the pieces back together. I can't risk you breaking me again. Then let me help you, he pleaded. Let me help put the pieces back together. Let me prove that I can be the mate you deserve, the father our pups need. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I'm not asking you to trust me completely. I'm just asking for a chance. One chance to show you that I'm serious, that I've changed, that I'm choosing you. I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect myself and my pups from potential heartbreak. I wanted to be strong and independent and show him that I didn't need him. But the truth was, I did need him. Not because I was weak, but because he was my mate, the other half of my soul. And the pups growing inside me deserved to have their father, assuming he truly had changed. And there, buried under all the hurt and anger and fear, was that stubborn kernel of hope. The same hope that had made me believe in the mate bond in the first place. The same hope that whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was our second chance. One chance, I heard myself say, and immediately regretted it. But it was too late to take it back. One chance, Kale. But I have conditions. Anything, he said immediately. You don't get to waltz back into my life like nothing happened. You don't get to claim me or the pups until you've proven yourself. You want to be part of this family? Then you work for it. You show me, day after day, that you mean what you say. And the moment, I think you're choosing duty over us again, this is over. For good. Do you understand? I understand, he said solemnly. And I accept your conditions. I'll do whatever it takes, Selene. However long you need. I'll prove it to you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Because I'd just made a decision that could either heal me or destroy me completely. And I had no idea which it would be. But for better or worse, Kale Thorne was back in my life. Now I just had to figure out if that was a blessing or a curse. The revelation came 3 days after I agreed to give Kale a chance. 3 days of him showing up at the healing center with lunch, walking me home at night, asking about my day like we were a normal couple instead of a broken mate bond trying to piece itself back together. 3 days of cautious conversations and careful distance, and both of us dancing around the massive elephant in the room, the pups. We hadn't talked about them. Not really. Oh, he'd asked how I was feeling, if I needed anything, if the pregnancy was progressing normally. But we hadn't discussed what it meant, what they meant, what kind of future we were building for these children who were conceived in love, but born into rejection. Until the ultrasound appointment. Elder Talia had insisted on a full magical imaging of the pups, something we usually only did for complicated pregnancies, or when there were concerns about the health of the offspring. At 5 months along, we needed to check their development, make sure the severed mate bond hadn't affected them, verify that everything was progressing as it should. I hadn't planned to invite Kale. This was my appointment, my medical check, my business. But when he'd walked me home the night before and I'd mentioned I had the imaging in the morning, the hope in his eyes had been so naked, so desperate, that I'd found myself saying, "You can come. If you want." The way his face had lit up should have warned me. Should have prepared me for how intense this would be, having him there for something so intimate, so connected to the life we were trying to build together. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality. Elder Talia's examination room was small and warm, lit by softly glowing healing crystals that cast everything in a gentle amber light. I lay on the cushioned table, my stomach exposed, while Talia prepared the ritual components needed for the magical imaging. Kale sat in a chair beside me, close enough that I could feel his presence, but not quite touching, respecting the boundaries I'd set. I could feel his eyes on me constantly, drinking in every detail like he was memorizing me. The way my hands rested protectively over the obvious swell of my belly. The changes pregnancy had brought to my body, curves I'd never had before, a fullness to my face and breasts, the slight glow that all pregnant wolves seem to develop. Every time he looked at me like that, like I was the most precious thing in the world, my traitorous heart would flutter. "Ready, dear?" Talia asked, and I nodded. She began the ritual, her weathered hands moving in practiced patterns as she chanted in the old language. The healing crystals flared brighter, their light coalescing over my stomach. And then, Projected into the air above me like a hologram, appeared the image. Two tiny forms, curled together in my womb. Perfect, beautiful, impossibly small. Their hearts beating in sync, their little bodies already showing the promise of strength they'd inherited from their father. I gasped, tears immediately springing to my eyes. It was one thing to know intellectually that I was carrying twins, to feel their movements and know they were real. But seeing them like this, seeing their actual forms floating in that magical projection, it made them real in a way nothing else could have. And then I heard Kale's broken sob. I turned my head to find him staring at the image with such raw emotion on his face that it hurt to look at. Tears streamed down his cheeks unchecked. His hands gripped the arms of his chair so hard his knuckles were white. And he was shaking, his whole body trembling with the force of whatever he was feeling. "My pups," he whispered hoarsely. "Our pups." Something in my chest cracked at the possessiveness in his voice, the awe, the love that was so evident it radiated from him like heat. This was real. Whatever else I doubted about Kale, whatever fears I had about his motivations, I couldn't doubt this. He loved these babies. Already, completely, with a fierceness that took my breath away. Talia continued her examination, narrating what she saw in a calm, clinical voice that contrasted sharply with the emotional storm raging in the room. Both pups are developing well. Strong heartbeats. Good size for their gestational age. No obvious abnormalities. She paused, her magic probing deeper. And they're both alpha-blooded, as expected. Very strong alpha presence, actually. These are going to be powerful wolves. Kale made another choked sound, and I looked at him again to find him smiling through his tears. Pride and joy and wonder warred on his face, transforming him from the harsh alpha king into just a man. A father, seeing his children for the first time. But then Talia's expression shifted, her brow furrowing as she examined something in the projection more closely. "What?" I asked immediately, fear spiking through me. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong exactly," she said slowly. "It's just, I've never seen this before. The pups, they're connected to each other in an unusual way. Twin bonds are normal, but this is different. Stronger. It's almost like they're sharing something beyond just genetics." She manipulated the magic, bringing the image closer. And there, barely visible between the two small forms, was a thread of golden light. Faint but unmistakable, pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. "What is that?" Kale asked, his voice rough. "I think," Talia said carefully, "that your pups are sharing a fragment of the mate bond that was rejected. They're carrying a piece of what their parents lost, bound together by it." The room fell silent as we all processed that. My hand unconsciously went to my stomach, feeling the weight of what she was saying. These babies weren't just connected as twins, they were connected by the very bond that should have linked Kale and me together. The bond he'd severed. The bond that had broken both of us. "Will it hurt them?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't think so," Talia said thoughtfully. "In fact, it might make them stronger. The mate bond is one of the most powerful forces in our world. Having access to even a fragment of it could give them abilities, connections to each other that go beyond normal twin bonds." "But..." She hesitated. "But what?" Kale demanded. "But it also means they'll be affected by the state of your relationship," she said, looking between us. "The mate bond responds to the emotions and connection between fated mates. If you two remain separated, if the bond stays severed, these pups might feel that. Might suffer from the absence of the complete bond between their parents." Ice flooded my veins. "You're saying that my refusal to forgive Kale could hurt our babies?" "I'm saying that the mate bond is a living thing, and when it's damaged, there are consequences," Talia said gently. "I can't predict exactly what those consequences will be for pups who carry a fragment of a broken bond. But they deserve to have the strongest, healthiest connection possible between their parents. For their own well-being." I closed my eyes, feeling the walls I'd built around my heart start to crumble for real this time. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This wasn't just about protecting myself from being hurt again. This was about two innocent lives who were literally carrying the weight of their parents' broken bond inside them. What do we do? I asked, my voice breaking. You heal the bond, Talia said simply. You choose each other completely and irrevocably. You stop fighting what the moon goddess herself decreed. These pups need you both, together, united by more than just shared DNA. I felt Kale's hand cover mine on my stomach, his warmth seeping into my skin. Selene, he said softly, please look at me. I turned my head, meeting his tear-stained gaze. I meant what I said, he told me. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this family. And I will do whatever it takes to heal the bond one broke. To give our pups the parents they deserve. To prove to you that I mean every word. But what if? I started, old fears rising up. No what ifs, he interrupted gently. No more doubt. No more fear. Just us, Selene. Just this moment, this choice, this chance to get it right. For them. His hand pressed more firmly against my stomach. For our pups who are carrying the burden of my mistake. Let me fix this. Let me make it right. I looked at the projections still floating above me, at those two tiny forms bound together by a golden thread of broken destiny. They hadn't asked for any of this. Hadn't asked to be conceived in the brief window between recognition and rejection. Hadn't asked to carry a fragment of a bond that should have been whole and strong and permanent. They deserved better. They deserved parents who were united, who loved each other, who could give them the security and stability that came from a complete mate bond. And maybe I deserved that too. Maybe I deserved to stop punishing both of us for Kale's mistake. Maybe I deserved to let myself hope again, to love again, to trust that this time would be different. Okay? I whispered, the word barely audible, but carrying the weight of complete surrender. Okay, Kale. Let's try.
For them.
Let's heal the bond. His breath caught, hope flaring in his eyes, so bright it almost hurt to see. You mean it? I mean it, I said more firmly this time. But I'm still scared. I'm still hurt. I'm still angry about what happened. This doesn't erase the past 6 months. I know, he said quickly. I know, and I don't expect it to. But I promise you, Selene, I swear on my life, on my position, on the moon goddess herself, I will spend every day for the rest of our lives making this up to you. Proving that you can trust me. Showing you that I chose right this time. Talia cleared her throat, reminding us she was still there. The healing won't happen overnight, she warned. Rejected bonds take time to repair, especially when they were severed so violently. It will require both of you to be committed, to work through the pain and trauma together. Are you both prepared for that? I looked at Kale, really looked at him. Saw the determination in his eyes, the love, the desperate need to make things right. And beneath my fear and hurt and anger, I felt that stubborn spark of hope growing stronger. Yes, I said. We're prepared. Good, Talia said, beginning to clean up the ritual components. Then I'll leave you two alone to discuss the next steps. But Selene, remember, healing is not the same as forgetting. You're allowed to still be hurt. You're allowed to need time. Don't let anyone, including yourself, rush you into something you're not ready for. She left the room, the door clicking shut behind her. And suddenly, Kale and I were alone with the projection of our pups still floating above us, that golden thread of broken bond pulsing between them. I'm sorry, Kale said into the silence. I'm so sorry, Selene. For all of it. For rejecting you, for hurting you, for putting our pups in this position. If I could go back and change it, I would in a heartbeat. But you can't, I said softly. And we have to live with that. Both of us. I know. He stood, moving closer to the table, his eyes fixed on the projection. They're beautiful, he whispered. So perfect. I can't believe we made them. We made them in a night of confusion and fear, I said, my own eyes returning to our pups. You came to me because you couldn't decide whether to accept or reject the bond. And we gave in to the pull between us even though you were planning to throw it all away the next day. I was a fool, Kale said roughly. The biggest fool in the history of our kind. Because I had everything I could ever want right in front of me, and I was too afraid to reach out and take it. I didn't argue. We both knew it was true. What happens now? I asked. How do we heal a bond that was rejected? I don't know, he admitted. But we'll figure it out. Together. That's all that matters. We face this together. Together. The word hung between us, heavy with promise and possibility. A word that terrified me as much as it gave me hope. But as I watched our pups in the magical projection, saw that golden thread binding them together, carrying the weight of our broken bond, I knew Talia was right.
We owed it to them to try.
To fight for the family they deserved. To heal what was broken between us. Even if it meant risking my heart one more time. Even if it meant trusting Kale when every instinct screamed at me to protect myself. Even if it meant letting go of my anger and hurt and fear to make room for something else. Something like forgiveness. Something like love. Together, I echoed softly and watched Kale's face transform with hope. And in that moment, surrounded by the soft glow of healing crystals and the image of our unborn pups, I chose to believe.
Chose to try.
Chose to give us a second chance.
For them.
And maybe, just maybe, for me too. The attack came 3 weeks later. 3 weeks of carefully rebuilding trust, of Kale showing up every single day without fail, of slowly, painfully learning to open my heart again. 3 weeks of feeling the broken mate bond start to knit itself back together, strand by delicate strand. 3 weeks of almost believing we might actually make this work. And then everything went to hell. I was at the healing center when the alarm bells started ringing. The sound was distinctive, impossible to mistake. 3 sharp clangs followed by 2 long tolls. Enemy attack. All warriors to defensive positions. All vulnerable pack members to the shelters. My hands froze over the bandage I was wrapping around a young wolf's arm. What? I started, but Elder Talia was already moving, her old body suddenly animated with purpose. Rogue pack, she said grimly, looking out the window toward the pack borders. They've been circling our territory for weeks, and it looks like they've finally decided to test our defenses. You need to get to the shelters, Selene.
Now.
But the patients. I'll handle the patients. She cut me off firmly. You're 7 months pregnant with the Alpha King's heirs. You are the most valuable target they could possibly find. Go. The truth of her words hit me like ice water. Of course I was a target. Of course rogues who wanted to weaken our pack would see me, heavily pregnant and vulnerable, as the perfect leverage. My hand went instinctively to my swollen stomach, where the pups were kicking frantically, sensing my fear through our connection. I ran. Or as close to running as I could manage at 7 months pregnant. The pack square was chaos, warriors shifting and racing toward the borders, parents grabbing their young and heading for the reinforced shelters, elders organizing defensive positions. And over it all, I could feel Kale's presence through the slowly healing mate bond, burning bright with alarm and desperate protectiveness. Selene. His voice cut through the chaos, and I saw him pushing through the crowd, still in human form but barely. His eyes were already wolf-bright, his beast riding him hard with the need to protect his mate and unborn pups. I'm going to the shelter, I called out, trying to ease the panic I could feel radiating from him through our bond. I'm fine. Go, do what you need to do. Protect the pack. But he was already at my side, his hand gripping my elbow. Marcus, he barked at a passing warrior. Escort Selene to the main shelter. Do not leave her side. Protect her with your life. Marcus nodded sharply, immediately moving to my other side. But Kale didn't let go. He pulled me close, his forehead pressing against mine, his breath coming hard and fast. Stay safe, he breathed. Please, Selene. Stay safe. I can't lose you. Not now. Not when we're finally. He trailed off, but I knew what he meant. Not when we're finally healing. Not when we're finally building something real. I'll be fine, I promised, even though fear was clawing at my throat. The shelter is reinforced. Marcus is a good warrior. And the pups need their father to protect the pack. Go. He kissed me then, hard and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. And then he was gone, shifting mid-run into his massive silver wolf, and racing toward the borders where the sounds of fighting were already beginning. Marcus guided me through the panicked crowd, his hand on my arm gentle but firm. We were almost to the shelter entrance when I heard it, a child's scream, high and terrified, coming from the direction of the pack square. I turned to see a small pup, maybe 5 years old, frozen in the middle of the square. The crowd had thinned enough that I could see what had paralyzed him. A rogue wolf, massive and scarred, had somehow breached the initial defenses and was stalking toward the child with clear predatory intent. No. I breathed, every maternal instinct in my body screaming at the sight. That was someone's baby. Someone's pup who would be torn apart if someone didn't do something. Selene, don't, Marcus warned, reading my intention in my face. You can't. You're pregnant. Let me. But I was already moving, pulling power from the deep well of magic all healers possessed. I might not be a fighter, but I'd been trained in defensive magic, in protection spells strong enough to hold off attackers long enough for help to arrive. I reached the pup first, scooping him up with one arm while my other hand blazed with silvery light. The rogue lunged, and I threw up a shield barrier that sent him skittering backward with a snarl of rage. Run! I shouted at the pup, setting him down behind me. Get to the shelter. Now! He ran, his small legs pumping as fast as they could go. And the rogue's attention shifted entirely to me. I saw the moment he scented what I was: pregnant, vulnerable, valuable. I saw his lips pull back in a vicious grin as he realized what a prize he'd found. Through the bond, I felt Kale's explosion of fury and terror. Felt him trying to race back to me, hampered by the rogues engaging him at the border. Felt his beast roaring with the need to protect his mate. But he was too far away. And I was alone. The rogue circled me, looking for weaknesses in my shield. I poured more power into it, but I could feel my reserves draining. Healing magic wasn't meant for combat. It wasn't designed to hold off a full-grown alpha rogue who outweighed me by 100 pounds and had decades of fighting experience. The Alpha King's whore, the rogue said, his voice rough and mocking even in wolf form through the pack mental link rogues could access. Carrying his bastard pups. What a prize. What leverage you'll make. Touch me and he'll tear you apart. I spat back, trying to buy time. Where was Marcus? Where were the other warriors? The rogue laughed. He'll try. But first, he'll watch as I kill you. As I rip those pups from your belly and destroy his entire bloodline. That's what he gets for refusing to ally with us. For thinking himself too good for our ranks. This wasn't just an opportunistic attack. This was personal. This was targeted. And I was going to die here in the pack square while my mate fought uselessly at the borders and my unborn pups kicked frantically inside me, sensing the danger.
No.
No, I wouldn't let that happen. I drew deeper into my magic than I'd ever gone before, pulling from reserves I didn't know I had. The shield blazed brighter, stronger, and I felt the pups inside me respond to my determination. Felt their own power, young and untrained but incredibly strong, rise up to meet mine. The golden thread between them that we'd seen in the ultrasound flared to life. And suddenly, impossibly, I could feel Kale through it. Not just through the healing mate bond, but through our pups, through the fragment of our connection they carried inside them. And he poured his strength into me. I felt his power flood through the pups, through that golden thread, straight into my failing shields. Felt his rage and his fear and his desperate love strengthen my magic in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The shield exploded outward, catching the rogue mid-lunge and sending him flying backward into the wall of a building. He hit with a sickening crack and slumped to the ground. But the effort cost me. I felt my legs give out, felt myself falling. Felt the sharp, wrong pain in my stomach that meant something was terribly, terribly wrong. Marcus was there suddenly, catching me before I hit the ground. Healer, he shouted. We need a healer now. I tried to tell him I was fine, but the words wouldn't come. The pain was spreading, intensifying, and I could feel the pups' distress through our connection. They were too young. It was too early. This couldn't be happening. Through the bond, I felt Kale's answering roar of anguish. Felt him abandon the fight at the borders, racing back toward me with every ounce of speed he possessed. Elder Talia appeared, her hands already glowing with healing magic. "Get her inside," she commanded Marcus. "The healing center.
Now."
And someone needs to tell the Alpha King his mate is in premature labor. Premature labor. The words echoed in my mind as Marcus lifted me carefully, carrying me back toward the healing center. Too early. The pups were coming too early. They weren't ready. This wasn't supposed to happen. I could feel Kale getting closer, could feel his terror through the bond that was now wide open between us. And I sent a thought to him, using the last of my strength to push it through our connection. "I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I should have stayed in the shelter. I should have protected them better." His response was immediate and fierce. "Don't you dare apologize for saving a pup's life. Don't you dare blame yourself.
Just hold on, Selene.
Hold on for me. For us. For our family. I'm coming." The healing center was a blur of activity. Talia barking orders, other healers rushing to prepare the birthing room, herbs and potions and magical implements being assembled with practiced efficiency. And through it all, the pain kept building, kept intensifying, kept promising that everything I'd fought for was about to be torn away. "Too early," I gasped as they laid me on the birthing table. "Talia, it's too early. They're not ready. They're alpha pups conceived between true mates," she said firmly, though I could see the worry in her eyes. "They're stronger than you think. And you're going to help them, Selene. You're going to use your healer magic to support them through the birth. Do you understand?" I nodded weakly, already reaching for my depleted power reserves. But there was nothing left. I'd poured everything I had into that shield, into saving myself and the unknown pup. And now my own pups were going to pay the price. Kale burst through the door, still half-shifted, blood and dirt covering his skin. "Selene," he choked out, rushing to my side. His hand found mine and squeezed so tight it almost hurt. "I'm here. I'm here, love. You're going to be fine. They're going to be fine." "I'm sorry," I said again, tears streaming down my face. "I used too much magic. I depleted my reserves. I can't help them now. I can't support them through the birth." "Then I will," Kale said fiercely. He looked at Talia. "The bond. We can use the bond, right? I can feed my power to her through the mate connection." "In theory," Talia said carefully. "But it's risky. The bond is still healing. Channeling that much power through a partially restored connection could damage it further." "I don't care," Kale and I said simultaneously. He looked at me, his eyes blazing with determination and love. "Whatever it takes to save you and our pups. Whatever the cost. I don't care if the bond shatters completely again. I don't care if it kills me. They come first. You come first. Always." And there it was. The proof I'd been waiting for. Not words, not promises, but action. Kale was willing to sacrifice everything. The bond, his power, his very life, for me and our pups. He was choosing us over everything else, including himself. "Do it," I whispered. He closed his eyes, and I felt him reach deep into his alpha power, that vast well of strength that made him the Alpha King. And then he poured it into me through our bond. It was agony. It was ecstasy. It was like being set on fire and drowned at the same time. The partially healed bond couldn't handle the sheer volume of power he was channeling, and I felt it straining, tearing, threatening to break apart completely. But it held. Barely, shakily, but it held. And with his power flooding through me, I could breathe again. Could think again. Could reach out with my healer magic to support the pups who were fighting their way into the world far too early. The labor was brutal. Hours that felt like days. Pain that felt like dying. Fear that never quite abated. But through it all, Kale held my hand and poured his strength into me. Never wavering. Never hesitating. Sacrificing himself piece by piece to keep us alive. And finally, I heard it.
A cry.
Tiny and weak, but undeniably there. "A girl," Talia announced, her voice tight with emotion. Small but breathing. Get her to the incubation crystal.
Now.
A girl. We had a daughter. I tried to see her, to get a glimpse of this tiny life we'd created, but another contraction hit and stole my breath. One more, Talia said. One more, Selene. You can do this. I could feel Kale's power starting to falter. Could feel him reaching the end of his reserves, giving me everything he had left. And still he didn't stop. Still he kept channeling, kept sacrificing, kept choosing us. The second pup came faster, as if sensing their twin needed them. Another cry filled the room, this one slightly stronger. A boy, Talia said. Larger than his sister. Stronger cry. Good color. He's going to be fine. A son. We had a son and a daughter. Twins, just like the ultrasound had shown. Both alive, both crying, both fighting. But something was wrong. I could feel it in the sudden silence that fell over the healing room. Could see it in Talia's face as she looked at me. What? I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The bleeding won't stop, she said quietly. And I can't, Selene. I can't heal you and keep the pups alive. I don't have enough power for both. You have to choose.
Choose.
I had to choose between myself and my pups. Between my life and theirs. But there was no choice. There had never been a choice. Save them, I said immediately. Whatever it takes. Save my babies. No, Kale said hoarsely, his power finally sputtering out.
No, Selene.
I won't let you. It's not your choice. I cut him off gently. They're innocent in all this. They deserve to live. They deserve everything. So save them, Talia. Please. There might be another way, Kale said desperately. He looked at Talia with wild eyes. The true mating bond. If we complete it now, it might give her the power she needs to heal herself. The full bond is supposed to be incredibly strong, right? Stronger than what we have now. You were rejected, Talia reminded him gently. The bond can be healed, but completing a mating with a rejected bond is unpredictable. It could strengthen both of you. Or it could kill you both. But there's a chance? Kale pressed. A small one, she admitted. Then we're taking it, he said firmly. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw everything I'd ever wanted to see. Love, devotion, certainty. Bite me, Selene. Complete the bond. Let's do this right the way we should have 6 months ago. Let's be true mates. For real this time. I should have argued. Should have pointed out the risks, the danger, the chance that we'd both die and leave our newborn pups orphaned. But I was so tired.
So weak.
And the pull of the mate bond, even partially healed, was demanding completion. If this kills us, I started. Then we die together, Kale said fiercely. The way it should have been from the start. But we won't die, Selene. We're going to live. We're going to raise our pups together. We're going to have the family we were always meant to have. He bent down, exposing his neck in the traditional offering. And I, using the last shreds of my strength, sank my teeth into his flesh and felt the bond explode into completion. It was like being struck by lightning. Like being reborn. Like every broken piece of my soul suddenly snapping back into place with painful precision. I felt Kale's love pour into me through the completed bond, felt his power join with mine, felt everything that had been severed 6 months ago knit back together in a rush of magic and emotion and pure, undeniable destiny. And I used that power to heal myself, to stop the bleeding, to repair the damage, to ensure that I would survive to see my pups grow up. When I opened my eyes, Kale was crying. Again.
Still.
Maybe he'd never stopped. We did it, he whispered. We actually did it. The pups? I asked weakly. Stable, Talia reported, and she was crying too. Both stable. Small but strong. They're going to make it, Selene. All of you are going to make it. I closed my eyes, let the relief wash over me. And through the newly completed mate bond, I felt Kale's answering wave of joy and love and gratitude.
We'd survived.
Against all odds, despite every obstacle, in spite of the rejection and the pain and the impossible choices, we'd survived. Our family had survived. And that, I thought as exhaustion finally claimed me, was worth every sacrifice we'd made. Every single one. 2 weeks after the birth, I stood in the pack square holding my daughter, while Kale held our son. The same pack square where he'd rejected me 7 months ago. The same space where my heart had been shattered in front of hundreds of witnesses. But today was different. Today was about redemption. Today was about claiming what should have been ours from the beginning. The pack was assembled again, just like they had been for the rejection. But the energy was completely different this time. Where before there had been shock and pity and judgment, now there was anticipation and joy and the kind of fierce pack pride that came from witnessing their alpha finally get it right. Our pups were perfect. Tiny, still fragile from their premature birth, but growing stronger every day. Luna, our daughter, had my coloring but Kale's strong features. Orion, our son, had Kale's silver hair but my gentle eyes. And both of them carried that golden thread between them, that fragment of rejected bond that had become their own unique connection. Elder Talia said they would be powerful beyond measure. That the trauma of their birth, the magic they'd been exposed to, the completed mate bond they were now connected to, all of it had marked them as special. As destined for greatness. But right now, they were just my babies. And I was about to stand in front of the pack that had witnessed my humiliation and claim my place as their Luna Queen. Are you ready? Kale asked softly, his hand finding mine between our pups. I looked at him, really looked at him. The Alpha King who had rejected me. The fated mate who had broken my heart. The father who had sacrificed everything to save our pups. The man who had finally, completely, chosen me. The completed mate bond thrummed between us, strong and sure and permanent. I could feel his love, his pride, his absolute certainty that this was right. And beneath it all, I could feel his lingering shame for what he'd put me through, for the pain he'd caused, for the months I'd suffered. Stop, I said quietly, knowing he could feel my words through the bond as clearly as hear them. Stop punishing yourself. We're here now. We made it. That's what matters. I hurt you, he said, and the pain in his voice was still raw after all this time. I broke you, Selene. I stood in this very spot and rejected the greatest gift the moon goddess could give me. How do I ever make that right? By being the mate you are now, I told him. By being the father our pups deserve. By choosing us every single day for the rest of our lives. That's how you make it right. Not by dwelling on what you did wrong, but by getting it right from now on. He nodded, but I could still feel his guilt through the bond. And I realized something. This wound between us wouldn't truly heal until I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I had to forgive him. Truly, completely, without reservation. Not for his sake, but for mine. For our pups. For the family we were trying to build. Kale, I said, making him look at me. I forgive you. For the rejection. For the pain. For all of it. I forgive you. His breath caught. Through the bond, I felt his shock, his disbelief, his desperate hope that I meant it. I'm not saying it didn't hurt, I continued. I'm not saying I've forgotten. I'm not saying there won't be moments when the old pain surfaces. But I'm choosing to let it go. I'm choosing to trust you. I'm choosing to believe in us. And I'm choosing to forgive. Tears streamed down his face. I don't deserve it, he whispered. Probably not, I agreed, and felt him flinch through the bond. But love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And I choose you, Kale Thorne. I choose us. I choose this family. Just like you chose us when it mattered most. He kissed me then, careful of the pup he held, but fierce and full of promise. And I felt the last of the shadows lift from our bond. Felt it settle into something whole and complete and unbreakable. Alpha King, Elder Talia called out. It's time. Kale straightened, his expression shifting into something formal and commanding. But his hand never left mine as we turned to face the assembled pack. 7 months ago, Kale's voice rang out across the square. I stood before you and made the worst mistake of my life. I rejected my fated mate, the woman the moon goddess herself chose for me, because I thought duty mattered more than destiny. I thought political alliance mattered more than love. I thought I knew better than fate itself. The pack was silent, hanging on every word. I could see some of them remembering that night, remembering my humiliation. But I held my head high, refusing to show shame for something that wasn't my fault. I was wrong, Kale continued, his voice rough with emotion. Catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. And I have spent every day since then living with that mistake. But through the grace of the moon goddess and the impossible strength and forgiveness of my mate, I've been given a second chance. A chance to do this right. A chance to claim what should have been mine, what should have been ours from the beginning. He turned to me, his eyes blazing with love and pride. Selene Ashwood, you are my fated mate, the mother of my pups, the Luna of my heart. Before this pack, before the moon goddess herself, I claim you as mine. Not out of duty, not out of obligation, but because I love you with everything I am. Because I choose you, freely and completely. Because you are my destiny, and I will spend the rest of my life proving myself worthy of that gift. My throat tightened with emotion, but I forced the words out. And I claim you, Kale Thorne. Not because I've forgotten the pain. Not because the rejection didn't nearly destroy me. But because I choose to forgive. I choose to trust. I choose to believe in second chances and in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. You are my mate, my alpha, my family. And I will stand beside you as your Luna Queen with pride. Kale lifted our son higher, his voice carrying across the square. This is Orion Thorne, my son and heir. Firstborn of the Alpha King. I lifted our daughter. And this is Luna Thorne, my daughter. Secondborn, but no less precious. They are the future of this pack, Kale declared. Born from love and forgiveness and the unbreakable bond between true mates. And they will be raised knowing that choosing each other, choosing family, choosing love, that is the greatest strength any wolf can have. The pack erupted in celebration. Howls of joy filled the air as wolves shifted and sang their approval to the moon goddess. And standing there, holding my daughter while Kale held our son, bound together by a mate bond that had been broken and healed and was now stronger than ever, I felt something I never thought I'd feel again.
Peace.
Not the absence of pain, not the erasure of the past, but the deep, abiding peace that came from choosing forgiveness, from choosing love, from choosing to move forward instead of staying trapped in old wounds. I love you, Kale said through the bond, the words wrapping around my heart like a promise. I love you too, I sent back and meant it with every fiber of my being. Later that night, after the celebrations had ended and the pups were sleeping peacefully in their bassinet, Kale and I stood on the balcony of the Alpha Quarters, my new home, looking out over the pack lands. Do you think they'll forgive me? Kale asked quietly. The pups, I mean, when they're old enough to understand what I did to you.
I thought about that.
About our children learning someday that their father had rejected their mother, that they had been conceived in a night of confusion and born from a bond that had been broken and healed. I think, I said slowly, that they'll learn the most important lesson anyone can learn. That people make mistakes. That even the strongest, wisest, most powerful among us can be wrong. But that those mistakes don't define us. How we respond to them, how we grow from them, how we fight to make things right. That's what matters. You're so much wiser than I deserve, Kale murmured, pulling me against his chest. Probably, I agreed, feeling his chest rumble with silent laughter. But you're stuck with me now. The mate bond is complete. No take-backs. I wouldn't take it back even if I could, he said seriously. Selene, I need you to know what I feel for you now. It's so much deeper than what I felt when the bond first snapped into place. Back then, it was just recognition. Destiny. The moon goddess telling me you were mine.
But now?
Now I know you. I know your strength, your compassion, your ability to forgive even when you have every right not to. I know the way you love our pups, the way you put others before yourself, the way you fought for your life and theirs when anyone else would have given up. And I love you, Selene. Not because fate says I should, but because you're you. And you're incredible. I turned in his arms, looking up at this man who had broken me and then spent months putting me back together. I love you too, I said. Even when I hated you, even when I wanted to hate you, some part of me still loved you. And now that I've chosen to let the hate go, to let the pain go, I can love you properly. Completely. The way we were always meant to love each other. He kissed me then, slow and deep and full of promise. And through the mate bond, I felt his love, his gratitude, his absolute commitment to our family. We'd been through hell. We'd been broken and rejected and torn apart. We'd faced premature birth, dangerous magic, and impossible choices. We'd sacrificed and suffered and fought our way to this moment. But we'd made it. Against all odds, despite every obstacle, in spite of the rejection that should have destroyed us forever, we'd made it. And standing there on that balcony, wrapped in my mate's arms with our pups sleeping safely nearby, I finally understood what Elder Talia had meant all those months ago. I had been forged in fire. The pain, the rejection, the struggle to survive, it had all made me stronger. Not broken, not weak, not unworthy.
Strong.
Powerful.
Whole.
I was Luna, queen of the Shadow Moon Pack. I was the fated mate of the Alpha King. I was the mother of 2 precious pups who would grow up to be incredible wolves. And most importantly, I was Selene. Not defined by what had been done to me, but by how I had risen from it. By how I had chosen forgiveness over bitterness, love over hate, hope over despair. The rejection had been the worst thing that ever happened to me. But surviving it, healing from it, becoming who I was now because of it, that might have been the best. What are you thinking? Kale asked, feeling my emotions shift through the bond. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that maybe the moon goddess knew what she was doing after all. Maybe we needed the rejection. Maybe we needed the pain and the separation and the struggle. Because the bond we have now, the love we share, the family we've built, it's so much stronger than it would have been if everything had been easy. You're giving the rejection credit for making us stronger? Kale asked incredulously. No, I corrected. I'm giving us credit for making us stronger. For choosing to fight for each other. For choosing to heal instead of staying broken. For choosing love even when it would have been easier to choose hate. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could feel him processing that through the bond. Finally, he said, You're right. We did this. You did this. You're the one who chose to forgive when you had every reason not to. You're the one who gave me a second chance. You're the one who made this family possible. We made it possible, I said firmly.
Together.
Because that's what mates do. They choose each other. Every single day. Through the good and the bad and everything in between. And as the moon rose over the pack lands, casting everything in silver light, I felt the rightness of it all settle into my bones. This was our redemption. Our second chance. Our happy ending that was really just a beautiful beginning. And I would treasure every moment of it. Because I had earned this. We had earned this. Through pain and sacrifice and impossible choices. Through rejection and forgiveness and love. Through everything. We had earned our forever. And nothing would ever take it away again. 6 months later, I stood in the nursery watching Orion and Luna sleep. They were getting so big, growing so fast. Luna had already started showing signs of her future power. Objects would move when she cried, responding to her distress in ways that shouldn't be possible for a pup so young. Orion was quieter, calmer, but I could see his father's strength in him already, could feel the alpha power that would one day make him a formidable leader. They were perfect. Both of them. Our miracle pups who had survived impossible odds to be here. You're going to spoil them, Kale said from the doorway, his voice warm with amusement. Says the Alpha King who had 3 pack members crafting custom toys before they were even born. I shot back, not looking away from our sleeping children. He came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. Guilty as charged. But can you blame me? They're perfect. They are. I agreed softly. Through the bond, I felt his contentment, his peace. And beneath it, still, that ever-present thread of gratitude that I'd given him this second chance. "Stop," I said, as I did every time I felt that particular flavor of his emotions. "Stop what?" "Stop being grateful. Stop feeling like you have to earn this every day. We're past that, Kale. We're solid. We're forever. You don't have to keep proving yourself." "Maybe I want to," he murmured against my neck. "Maybe proving myself to you, to our pups, to our pack. Maybe that's what makes me a better alpha. A better mate. A better man." I turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You're already all those things. The rejection doesn't define you anymore. How you've loved us since then, that's what defines you now." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still made my heart skip. "Have I told you today that I love you?" "At least 3 times, I said, smiling back. "But I'm always happy to hear it again. I love you, Selene Thorne. My mate, my Luna, my everything. And I will spend every day of forever showing you exactly how much." "I love you too," I whispered, and sealed it with a kiss. Behind us, Luna made a small sound in her sleep. We both turned to look, saw her tiny hand reach out instinctively, searching for her twin. Orion's hand found hers automatically, their fingers intertwining even in sleep. The golden thread between them pulsed gently, that fragment of rejected bond that had become their own unique connection. "They're going to be incredible," Kale said softly. "They are," I agreed. "Because they're going to grow up knowing that love is a choice. That forgiveness is powerful. That even the deepest wounds can heal if you're brave enough to let them." "You're an amazing mother," Kale said. "And an amazing Luna. The pack adores you." "The pack tolerates me," I corrected, but I was smiling. "They adore their alpha king, who finally got his head out of his ass." He laughed, the sound rich and warm and full of joy. "Fair point." We stood there together, watching our pup sleep, bound by a love that had been tested and broken and healed stronger than ever. And I thought about all the pain we'd been through, all the struggle and sacrifice and impossible choices. Would I change it if I could? Would I erase the rejection, skip the heartbreak, avoid the months of suffering?
No.
Because all of it, every terrible, painful moment, had led us here, to this family, to this love, to this forever. And that was worth everything we'd endured, everything we'd lost, everything we'd fought for. This was our redemption, our second chance, our happily ever after. And it was perfect, just like it was always meant to be.